All right, today on the podcast, I've got my friend Jeremy Hinote. He is the owner and clinical director of Savannah River Counseling in Augusta, Georgia. He's a licensed professional counselor, national certified counselor, and certified professional counselor supervisor in the state of Georgia. He works with individuals ages 11 and up, couples, families, and treats a variety of concerns. He is Gottman Level 3 trained, as well as many other trainings here, and he's full time as well. And he served in ministry for over 20 years, including roles in youth and family ministry and involvement minister. And he offers Christian counseling upon request. Licensed in Georgia and South Carolina, and a telehealth provider in Florida. Husband, father of two, enjoys fitness, sports, outdoors, and active involvement in his church community. Thanks for coming on the show, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's start with how we met, actually, because I'm a big fan of conferences.
We met at the LPCA conference in Atlanta. I think 2 years ago now. Maybe it could have been longer.
24.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think a mutual friend had
Mhm.
introduced us because I was at a place being at a large kind of corporate practice here in Augusta and was kind of at a crossroads of trying to figure out what to do, whether to stay there or kind of go on my own. And a friend of ours introduced us and was like, "Hey, I got someone you need to meet." And I think took me to your table. And then basically, I think I signed up at the conference to join the WISE consulting community and then join the mastermind group. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good.
Great. Yeah. What made you decide at that moment to sign up? Because, a lot of people, they wait, they're not sure.
Yeah, for me, I was definitely primed. I'd already been thinking about going on my own, but then I realized, I've never done this before and had no clue. Even though I've been on like the leadership end of counseling and practices, I still haven't done all those type of things. So, but talking to you and David Sturgis at the table, and I kept kind of circling back to the table and asking questions, and y'all were willing to answer questions I had. And so I was like, okay, they sound like they know what they're talking about. There's a whole community of people that I could be bouncing things off of and really helping me. And so really through that, knowing the how big the community is and how many people are a part of it all over the nation, that is Christian practice owners, which is the ballpark I was in, and wanting that to be a big push for the practice. And then knowing things were organized and knowing there was trainings and webinars and knowing that there's other people in the same boat I am that I could bounce things off of, all that together really helped me to make a decision to go ahead and sign up. And I'm on my third mastermind group now. So I
Yeah.
just glutton for punishment.
Well, I'm so glad you did. And so let's see, and that was May 2024. So not even quite 2 years ago, you were working at a group practice, and now we're recording this in February 2025, six.
Mhm.
So not even 2 years. And what's your practice like now?
Yeah, I went from the fall of 24, going out on my own, wanting to grow it into a group practice, hired an office manager and two therapists in August of 2025. They came on. And so less than a year, I added people and then kept doing the mastermind groups for kind of each phase of it. And then now I just signed a lease, really like 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
or maybe last week, for an office that has 8 offices, and is more than double the square footage I'm in now, and been already interviewing people, and we signed up an intern that's coming on. So yeah, we're growing, and it's been exciting, scary and exciting all at the same time. So all in less than 2 years. Yeah.
That's right. Love it. Love it. I know we could talk about all that the whole time. But when we were in our group not too long ago, you talked about the success you had in working with an insurance company that, wasn't wanting to raise the rate and you were needing rates raised. And I just thought it was such an important story to share with practice owners. I invited you to come on the podcast to talk about it. So let's kind of walk through that journey, because I think a lot of people can relate to insurance not reimbursing enough. Should I drop this panel? I don't know what to do. So can you kind of take us back to how did you know that you needed to reach out and try to get rates changed?
Yeah. I think most people go into, especially insurance-based practices, and especially, people who are new to it, really not knowing that you can even do that. I think there's a majority of people that don't even realize you can actually go to the insurance panel that you're signed on with and contracted with and ask for raises along the way. So I started doing some research, just even here, just locally. I started talking to other therapists and friends that took some of the similar insurances that I did. In this case, I was looking at Tricare. So number one, I realized at the time, they were my lowest reimbursement. And we're in a military community, so we have a lot of military and military families. And that's something I've always wanted. I've always done, but also wanted to continue to do as we go forward. But the rate was really low, and I'd already been in it close to a year at that point, and didn't know much about the contracts end of things at that point early on, and realized, what I signed when, because I was just trying to quickly get on panel because I was now on
Yeah.
my own, because I wanted to capture all those patients I had from the other place,
Yeah.
and I knew they could leave and go somewhere else. So signed that contract, knowingly signed that there was a percentage of a certain other number, and it was very cryptic, and you to have to decipher all that. But realized after the fact that what I had signed was to take a percentage of this other amount that was really low, and actually was my lowest reimbursement. So number one was finding my lowest reimbursement, looking around at other people who, for example, a friend of mine who is not fully credentialed with Tricare, is not fully in network, and her reimbursement is higher than mine. She's just a few miles from me. So I started checking in that, realizing it was very low. And then really that is what I started looking at even across the board with the other insurances, just looking out there. And because a lot of people are going to advertise it on their website, and there's other places you can kind of look, even Psychology Today, or just word of mouth. And I realized, okay, I need to start looking into this and see what I need to do to correct this and see if I can get it higher along the way.
Yeah. Well, I think your story is super relatable. People who are on panels, they leave a group practice, they want to start their own, they want to get on panels as fast as they can to serve their clients.
Mhm.
So curious, looking back, do you wish that you had hired somebody to do the credentialing for you, or are you still glad that you did it yourself?
So I, looking back, it probably would have been better if I would have hired someone to do the credentialing, even though there was a part of me I was like, well, I want to do this myself because I'm doing
Yeah,
everything myself. So I want to know the ins and outs. And
sure.
so, and I did. I needed to know the ins and outs as a practice owner, and then growing into a group practice, I did want to know some more of the back end of things. But that was one thing. When I brought on people here, I did hire someone to do the credentialing after that. So with myself, I didn't, because I was kind of felt like I was in a hurry to get
Yeah.
moving. And that would have probably helped me to be able to ask someone to look at the contract to make sure that everything in there is what I think it is. Because now looking back, I realize, yeah, it wasn't that. And there's things I needed to understand and know. And so since that experience, I definitely started doing some research into companies and groups and people that I can call on. And that's when I decided on the next round. And as we go forward, uh, I'll I'll just pay someone to do
Yeah.
that. Yes.
Right. That's right. And hopefully they will negotiate for you and then you don't have to do that. But I
Yeah.
love what you said that you wanted to learn the ins and outs yourself.
Hmm.
And I think there's certainly something to be said for that. And as you grow your group practice, you'll look back and you'll be like, oh yeah, I did do that. Even though someone else
Hmm.
does it for me now, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And also it I have an office manager, and so she and I have talked about, because she's wanting to know that into things. So that may be something
Oh yeah.
we can we kind of figure out together as we go forward, is running her through maybe some trainings and things of that nature, because there's some groups out there that do trainings in insurance-based practices, and helping you understand the ins and outs and what to do, and how to write the template of a letter to the insurance companies, and how to actually ask for a higher rate before, during the credentialing process and before you sign the paperwork, because you can do that as well. Doesn't mean they're going to necessarily give you what you're asking for, but you can ask for that even before you sign and see if you can get it higher.
Yeah. So when you realized how low your rate was, that you need to make a change, were you the only one taking that insurance in your group practice?
I was, and I was actually shocked in the end all what took place because at the time I was the only one. I mean, it was just me here, and I had been credentialed with the other insurance companies through a different means, and then would wanted to make sure I did Tricare. So then I started that process. So I called the insurance company and started asking them questions about, hey, what do I need to do to, I'm wanting to ask for and negotiate a higher rate of reimbursement. And so generally, like with Tricare, you would go through your area representative. My area representative wasn't very helpful, so that didn't help me at all. And
Oh,
so I went around her
yeah.
and found out who I needed to send information for about a renegotiation. And there's like with Tricare, there's an email that they will give you to send everything to, and there's a group that just handles all that. And so, once I got that information, I found out, at least with Tricare, and this is where all the insurance companies are different. Tricare, whenever you sign up, so I signed up in October of 24, you each year at your anniversary, you have 90 days before your anniversary to renegotiate if you're going to renegotiate. So I started in July of this past year, putting everything together. And so I can send it off to that email address. And so, I put a letter together with all different kinds of information. And that was, kind of sharing what I do and who I am and my credentials and how long I've been practicing and the things that I do that are maybe different than other people, and kind of going down this list of things and my caseload, um, and a number of kind of bullet items that I put on there. And then I actually did something that typically you don't do with insurance companies, which is tell them the percentage you're looking for. Sometimes you're just asking for a higher rate, but sometimes you can actually say, well, hey, this is kind of what I need. Because a lot of the insurance individuals that train you in how to ask for raises usually will tell you, it's probably not a good idea to make an ultimatum. It's probably not a good idea to say, hey, if you don't give me this, this is what's going to happen. The crazy thing is I kind of did that, and I said it very nicely. I used AI to help me formulate a really good letter with all my information, and I let them know how low they were compared to all the rest of the insurances I currently have, and they're the lowest by far. And so I wasn't even asking them to go beyond what my highest was. I was really just wanting them to fall in the middle somewhere. And so I started that process. I sent the first email. And typically it's like a 4 to 6 week window that you're going to be kind of communicating back and forth. If you go back and you don't agree with their terms, then it could last longer. So I started in July and it went into September, before I was getting closer and closer to my date, before we agreed to terms. So I gave them the whole spiel. They kicked back an email and, just basically saying, well, a lot of niceties. We can't go as high as you want, but we'll give you this. And it was maybe like 2% over what I was making before, because it's a percentage of another number. And so it was only going to raise my reimbursement per session like $2. So I pushed back and, just kind of send back another very nice communication with them, explaining more information to them again, and just letting them know, hey, I can't accept that. I need it to be this amount, this percentage. Waited another week or so, got communication back. They took it up about 4 more%. So now I'm up to like 6% more. Still was not where I wanted to be. Communicated back with them again. They communicated back with me again. They went up a little bit more. And then I think it was the fourth time was the charm. So I finally just told them very nicely, like I really honor our military and their families, and kind of went to this feel like I'm running a private practice. I just simply can't afford, and running a business, to take this rate, accept this rate. I have to have it at this certain amount to be able to basically continue be on panel with you guys.
Yeah.
And so finally, the fourth time, they sent back a percentage that now was not my lowest, and in fact kind of fell in the middle. And it was definitely a rate. I think I probably money wise, it went up about $20 a session. And so
Wow.
that was a huge raise. So,
Yeah.
um, so I finally, when they got there, I thanked them, and everything was good to go. And, everything has been good since. And then once I got myself in that position, because I'm credentialed under the business tax ID. When I brought on another LPC, I was able to bring them in under that same, so they actually get paid the same as the practice
Right.
does. So instead of them starting off at a real low amount, they actually make what I do, which is great. So it's been really good. So we're enjoying Tricare, and as much as you can enjoy government insurance and the ins and outs and sometimes the frustration. So
Yeah. That's great. I love that you included in there your passion for caring for these families.
yeah,
That's why we do the work we do.
yeah.
I'm curious how stressful this must have been for you. Was it really difficult to kind of manage all that while you're running your practice? And I'm guessing there were times you wanted to give up.
It was, yeah, because I was, at first I was really discouraged when I first got back that first email. And at that point, I was just like, what do I have to lose? I mean, so I had to change my own thinking about it. I had to get to a place in my own thinking where I was like, okay, I have to be okay not being on panel with them. Like I have to go all the way there in my thinking for me to be able to take these steps. And that's basically where I was able to get to. I didn't want to do that because I mean, I really care for these military families. I respect what they do and for our country. And I didn't want to not see them, but I had to make up my mind to say, Jeremy, you got to be okay not being on panel with them anymore. And so then when I didn't feel like I had anything to lose is when it made it more easy for me to send the replies and keep pushing gently and kindly. I wasn't trying to be mean to them or anything like that. I was very thankful and appreciative and, everything, every step of the way, hopefully to just minimally to grease the wheels some, if I needed to. So, but I did. I mean, I went through a lot of that because I did. I've seen it military, and we're in a military community, and it's the last thing I wanted to do. So I had to make plans for figure out how to do a cash rate for those individuals, and maybe even not see them if they wanted to use their insurance. So,
What
but
percentage of your caseload would you say was TRICARE?
at that time, I probably had 30 active patients or families. So at that time, it it was 40 to 50%. I had a lot, that I was seeing weekly of my caseload. So, um, and I think that helped in my argument because I was seeing such a large, and I kept receiving faxes, referrals. Because I finally got to the point I had so many I couldn't see anybody else.
Yeah.
So they kept sending. So
So did you keep taking TRICARE patients while you were negotiating?
I did. I kept doing that just in case, not knowing exactly what was going to take place, but I was glad, prayerfully, I was happy that it all worked out in the end.
Mhm. Yeah. Another, I think, important point here is this balance we have as therapists that we want
Mhm.
to care for people, but we have to run our business. And
Yeah.
that is so much of the work that I see that I have to do with practice centers is getting you to a place of like, yes, it is about the clinical work, but if your business doesn't succeed, then you're not doing it at all, right? And so
Yeah.
I love that you saw, hey, I've got to pay attention to this business. I can't
Mhm.
suffer because of this. And it's not right that you should have to. Even when I'm working with practice owners with insurance-based practices, it's, hey, let's look at all the ones. What are they all paying out? And you're right, there's some of them that are paying out $20, $30 less than other ones.
Mhm.
And I'll always be like, why are you on that panel? Get off of it. Because
Yeah.
it's strictly a business move.
Yeah. It is, and it's like with me, I have an LAPC that works with me, and with if you're associate level, you can with insurance. There's two insurance companies generally you can do supervisory billing. So she gets billed underneath me, and that's Aetna and Cigna, or any like subsidiaries of them, like Meritain Health
Yeah.
is connected to Aetna, and so but Cigna, for example, is by far my lowest, and but I'm kind of stuck. Actually, they're my next one that I'm going to be doing the same process to because theirs is horribly low. And so, but I use them, I need them in a sense because they're one of the ones I can do supervisory billing, and us being mainly
Yep.
insurance based, it allows me to give her patients because people are calling to want to use Cigna. So, but I've been with them long enough, credential my own, and we have enough of volume because sometimes you need time with that insurance company. That's, right now we're in the kind of a phase of the Headways and Almas of the world that you're using to be credentialed through. And a lot of it, and they handle everything for you, credentialing, billing, everything. But at the same time, if you want to get higher rates, sometimes you do need to be credentialed on your own tax ID, but you need to use that insurance a good bit to gain some clout with the insurance company. So, so that you can go to them. So like if I'm credentialed with Cigna, but I'm never using them because I'm using them through Headway, well, that doesn't help my cause to approach them and ask for a higher rate because I'm not using them. So if they see I'm using them, which I am because my LAPCs are using them, well, then that gives me more clout and we can be seen as a practice better with all the different specialties and things that we add to them. So then I have a little more push to ask for a higher rate at that point.
Yeah. How much time would you suggest working with an insurance company before asking for a raise?
Most of the time, you want to be with them close to a year. The different companies like Tricare, they want you doing it in 90 days before when you sign with them. The other companies, sometimes you can ask for raises every 6 months. Usually, I mean, the default is probably once a year. You can ask. Doesn't mean you'll get it, but you need to ask.
Mhm.
You need to, when you ask them, you need to put it on your calendar so that you know next year to ask at the same time, and just don't take no for an answer at that point. But I would say you probably want to be on there about a year and actively using the insurance under your tax ID for that long, so you have a little more push with them because you have proven you're going to use them and you're seeing their patients and you're helping their clients along the way.
Yeah. Were there any resources that you want to recommend or mention that helped you through this process?
Yeah, there's a lady, her name is Barbara Griswold. She does the Insurance Maze. That's actually her website. It's like the insurancemaze.com. And she has a book. It's called Navigating the Insurance Maze. It says it's the therapist's complete guide to working with insurance and also whether you should or not. So, and she's actually in the LMFT, I believe, but is kind of an expert in a sense into the insurance realm as well. For me, my wife has helped me as well. She works for a mental health company, and that's the side of things that she's on. So it's been nice being able to ask her questions along the way. The Insurance Maze website also has a template, which is very helpful. So if you're looking for a template because you really need something, the template is more bullet pointed. And so, and really the letter you're writing is like, this is your plea. So you want to be able to call the insurance company first and kind of ask, hey, where would I send this communication? But before you do that, you really need to have your letter complete. Like you need to have your request and all your information done because there are times where while you're on the phone with them, they may want to go ahead and say, well, hey, tell me about this. And they want to hear your pitch over the phone. They usually won't do that, but you have to be ready for that. And so, but basically you're setting up your argument. I mean, you kind of have your bullet points and everything. And in that, the biggest thing you're trying to do when you're asking for any kind of raise is, you're kind of asking yourself, well, what makes me stand out? Is it the fact that I see 50 of their patients, their clients every week, or do I have a special training? So, and there's a number of things you can kind of look at, like are you bilingual? Are you multilingual? Do you have specialties? They are not as interested about you telling them that you do anxiety, depression, because every single person that is a licensed therapist should be able to do anxiety, depression. You can put that, but that's not what they care about. They want to know, what makes this person worth it. Couple of big ones are addictions,
Sure.
chemical addiction, sexual addiction, eating disorders. Those are biggies. If you do it, those are going to make you kind of stand out. Do you have licensure in other states? Because that means you can use that to say, hey, I have licensure in other states, so I can meet more of the needs of your clients that have your insurance. They want to know more about evidence-based treatments. which is what we should be doing, especially if it's brief, because they like that because they don't have to pay you too much. So if it's focused on symptoms, you can, if you have a specialty in CBT or DBT or EMDR, ABA, anything trauma informed, mindfulness based kind of stress reduction type stuff.
Yeah.
Um, Also, like if you do any kind of critical incident type
Mhm.
trainings, like debriefing or like employee wellness workshops and things like that, that's a biggie. They also want to know that you are tracking the symptoms and the progress. So throwing in there that you use a PHQ-9 and a GAD-7 or other kind of symptom tools. But also, do you see social populations, especially if they're underserved in your area? So like for me with Tricare, it's a big deal because we live in a military community. So do you see veterans? Do you see LGBTQ? Do you see child and teens, adolescents? Because those can be biggies if you do. Do you work with autism and ADHD, especially with kids? Do you work with kids and adolescents that cut or have SI? Those are all biggies that if you do and you work with those, but also look for diversity. If you do enough research and you go online and you look at who is in their bubble of clinicians, if you research hard enough, you can kind of find out, okay, who's on panel with them and what specialties do they have. And this is like the deeper research, like, so you have to spend some time doing this, but this is to prove your case. So if you find 10 clinicians and, so let's say they don't meet a certain demographic, or they don't advertise that they see certain groups of people, then, and that's something you do, then that's going to heighten you above the rest of them. And so those are key things. Also, if you used to work somewhere, so let's say you did your internship at a mental health hospital or an IOP or some kind of critical response team, you want to include that in there. Now, you may not want those referrals all the time. That may not be the demographic you're really looking to work with, but that boosts you in some way. That highlights, so highlight even old experiences that you have been trained under and have been used to, because that's going to also help you as well. So those are all things. That's a whole bunch of different stuff, but that's the stuff you want to include on that bullet point letter, letting them know that also your caseload, maybe you're a high volume of X, Y, and Z, or maybe also you want to include, hey, I haven't had a raise in this amount of time. You want to include that too. Some people, they've been on panel for 10 years and never asked for a raise or never got a raise. And you want to include stuff like that in there along the way as well.
It's great. Wow. This is super helpful. You certainly have learned the ways.
I'm
Uh,
still learning.
yeah. Is there anything that we didn't discuss that you want to make sure to mention?
Yeah, I think most clinicians, especially if you're insurance based, I think the thing we try to avoid is being on too many panels. I think initially we think that's going to be very helpful, but like from the running business side of things and having good reimbursement, I do think it's important that we have some of the main insurance companies that are in our community. That's one of the first things I was trying to be aware of is like, what are like the big businesses around me, what's their insurance, and
Yeah.
sometimes that's not easy to find. Like I may contact the county here or local county to find out, okay, what's the insurance that the county workers are using, or the school system, or one of these big companies. They usually go with some of the larger, companies like Blue Cross, Anthem, Aetna, Cigna, United, Optum, and then you got Tricare, Medicare. But I would say like, narrow it down. Usually for the business end of things, there's a lot of insurances that don't pay very much in reimburse. And the trap you could get into is if you allow for too many of those low paying reimbursing insurance companies. Well, now all the people coming to your practice may only take those or only use those, and that may put you in a financial burden. And so you kind of have to tease out, how many am I going to take? Am I going to take four highest or four of the main ones, or five or six? So I would encourage people to kind of narrow down insurance companies you're going to use. You do need to run a business, so you do need them to reimburse you at a certain level. So you need to do the math to find out, what if every person that shows up comes in as a Cigna patient? I got to be prepared for that, or I got to prepare a boundary around that, one of the two along the way as I enter into this. But do your research, look around, ask friends in your community, what's their reimbursement. Most of them, they'll be honest with you. It kind of gives you an idea of kind of where you're at. If you're too low, then that may be the time to really either hire someone or use a template and or someone else that knows and has done this before, and ask them how you can kind of formulate a good letter that's fits you well and get you where you need to go.
Yeah, it's great. Well, thank you for all of this good advice. This is
Yeah,
going to be super helpful. As we're kind of closing up, I wanted to ask you about the Wise Practice membership community. We
yeah.
talked about it a little bit when we got started, but could you kind of share why it's helpful to you? And honestly, has it been financially worth it? Because I think a lot of therapists, we struggle to put that financial commitment into something.
Yeah. Initially with the membership, that was the first thing I signed up for. And I've encouraged other people, even in my area here that I knew were about to go out on their own. And I told them, I said, I said, minimally sign up for the membership. It's X amount of dollars a month. I was like, I said, there's so many resources on there. There's meetings every single week, almost every day of the week that you can bounce into from, you're just starting off and trying to figure out what to do to going into a small group practice. And there's in every step and phase of the practice, there's a group for that. There's other people that are all around the country going through the same thing that you can bounce stuff off of. So that was a huge value. That was the first thing I did. And there's the website. The circle has an immense amount of documentation and really everything you need to start a practice. So even if you just become a person in the community, you're going to have all the resources you need and more on the website just to be able to go off of. And then if you jump into the different meetings and groups that are there constantly and you're active, then you're going to be able to get all the information you need and more. So that's been a huge value. And then through that, I learned about the mastermind groups, which are the more specialized groups that are very small and are there with a coach that's working with you every other week for 6 months or longer. And there's one for every phase of where you're at. And that's kind of what I've done. I went from being on my own, so in a solo practice, to joining the next mastermind group that was starting a group practice. And now I'm in the one with Whitney that is growing your group practice, because that's the phase I'm in now. And so, but it's been great. I've told people that it is worth every penny because it's kept me in check and accountable. And I feel like I'm confident in knowing that I'm going down the right path
Mhm.
and being and keying in on all of the things I need to know about that, as all of us were not trained in our master's or doctorate or whatever to do. They didn't train us on any of that stuff. So this is basically that. Like, this is going to train you how to do everything and more, and give you all the people around you to do that. So I would highly recommend to sign up for the community, but also mastermind group for sure.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, thank you for all your kind words and your commitment to wise practice. And I was just talking to somebody the other day about it's those that show up, do the work, their practices grow, and you certainly are in that category and have shared that with us today. So thank you
Yeah,
for that. And appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
absolutely. Thank you.